Nigeria's equities markets demonstrated strong performance in September, with all-share index rising by 2.05%, adding 1.158 trillion naira to market capitalization. The surge, driven by robust activity in banking, oil and gas, and insurance stocks, pushed the market's year-to-date return to an impressive 31.81%. Despite some profit-taking in consumer and industrial stocks, the all-share index closed the month at 98,558.79 points. Well, joining me for more on this, I have with me Vincent Oshoma, Securities Dealer, Midpoint Capital Ltd. Thank you so much, Vincent, for joining me today.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Good morning to you too. Well, how would you describe the stock market in September?
Yeah, September was positive, and like you mentioned, and it can be attributed to performance in the banking sector as well as the oil and gas sector. We also saw improved performance in the insurance sector. But mainly the banking sector, we saw in the positive sentiment, and that is attributed to the release of the H1 result for most of the major banks. And the dividend that was declared, I think that was what really pushed investors into the banking sector.
Interesting. Well, looking at the banking sector, are we saying that, investors or the market has recovered from the shock of the tax? Yes, that particular tax that was imposed by the federal government. Those are some of the things. So that was one of the things that sort of affected that index earlier in the year. Please go ahead if you can hear me. I was asking you if investors have sort of recovered from the shock, talking about that particular tax that was imposed, of course, on the banking sector.
Yeah, I think a lot of persons have come to analyze the tax, the law that was passed by the National Assembly,
the windfall tax,
approved by the president. Because when you look at it, the windfall tax is on realized profits. A lot of those gains have not been realized. They are unrealized. A lot of those forex gains have not been realized, as the banks have explained. And I think people have factored those up. So if they have not been realized, they are not subject to the tax that have been passed, because I'm continue to see volatility in the forex market. So until they are realized, they won't be taxed. I think people have looked at that. And also when you look at the results that were published, because we saw a lot of them, like for Zenith, you saw, and GT, we saw a 100% increase in their interim dividend, and also we saw an increase, 50% increase in interim dividend for Access Bank. And I think a lot of investors reacted to those corporate action. Same with UBA, that we saw an impressive increase. That should be about 200% increase in their interim dividend. So I think investors reacted to that. That's why we saw the positive movement in the banking sector.
Right, let's talk a bit about the insurance and oil and gas sectors. I mean, particularly the oil and gas sector, which saw a 7% increase. Now, we can almost tell what the key drivers were, but I mean, let's hear it from you.
Yeah, the major drivers, when you look at the activities in the oil and gas sector, especially for companies like Wando, Seplat, and also for Total, we saw impressive their performance for months. There was a jump, and Wando, which was a major one, joined the stocks that became over 1 trillion naira stock, and that was impressive. We saw an impressive performance as a result of the conclusion of the deal with NENI, the purchase of Ajib operations in Nigeria. Also, Seplat, we talked about the approval of their acquisition of ExxonMobil operations in Nigeria. I think those are some of the things that pushed the performance. Also, we saw an impressive performance in Total. So these are what pushed the oil and gas index upwards.
Well, let's hear a bit about the insurance sector.
Yeah, the insurance sector, one thing about the insurance sector is that with the increase in the fixed income yields in fixed income space, we expect to see an increase in their performance, which is what is showing in their performance. Also, as we continue to see, people are looking at the banking sector, looking at other options, areas they can invest outside the banking sector. I mean, the insurance sector, with their performance so far, they have shown that maybe an impressive, and people showed opportunities for people to invest. So, I mean, remember that they'll continue to see increase premium as a result of the increase in their premium, especially for the third party and all the structuring that's happening in the sector. I think these and also the yields in the fixed income space have affected their performance, and people are actually looking at those increase to take opportunities, take position in those stocks.
All right, just before we close, I'd like you to also talk about, consumer goods and industrial goods. I mean, we saw those index retreat in the review month. What for you, was responsible for that?
Yes, as we continue to see increase in yields, especially with a sharp increase in MPR by the CBN 50% increase, it continue to affect the consumer goods, those in the manufacturing sector, the consumer goods, and also the industrial goods sector, because it's expected that their finance costs and also their finance costs will continue to increase. Also, we're going to see gradual increase, not too much increase in forex. So these are some of the things that are affecting those in that sector. And also considering the fact that we have economic challenges that have affected the disposable income of a lot of Nigerians. So it has really affected, it's expected to affect the performance of those in the consumer goods sector. And that's what we are seeing in their stocks. People are actually taking profits in those stocks and going into other areas.
Right. Now, divorcing this conversation from the various indices and boards.
Because of the plan, delisting, also.
Go ahead.
Yes, also for Nigerian bureaus, also for Nigerian bureaus that is currently doing a right issue, and it's expected that the right issue will correct the challenges that they are currently having. I think those are some of the things that have affected the stock. Aside the most of the companies in the consumer goods sector, they are having challenges, and that is affecting their prices.
All right, well, divorcing this particular conversation from the various, whether we're talking about index or boards, I'd like you to talk to us about, specific corporate actions or stocks that sort of practically stood out during the review month, and, what sort of propelled the sentiments they enjoyed. You probably want to talk about Cavitin or some other stocks. We've talked about Owando earlier, but I mean, I'll just leave you to decide which ones to talk about.
I think I would like to focus first of all on banking stocks, because that's actually where a lot of people are interested in, because when you look at what is happening in the economy, those in the consumer goods sector and industrial sector, they are being challenged. As we see increasing rates, it is good for the banking stocks. Like you saw, when you look at most of them, they are like a Zenith Bank, Access Bank, and GT. You saw that their interest income increased, so more than 100%. Interest expenses also increasing because of the increasing rates. I think that, and you can see, it's showing in their top line, it's also showing in their bottom line, and also their dividends have been affected. So investors are looking at these figures, and I expect that when their third quarter results, it will a positive sentiment towards those stocks as people look at their final result and final dividend. I think it's one area that people investors also need to watch. Then for the oil and gas sector, we'll continue to hear news that there have been a lot of reform, and on October 1st, we heard the president talking about the plan approval, final approval for CEPLA deal with ExxonMobil. I think these are some of the things that are definitely going to affect that sector. We're going to see reforms in that sector. And as we're going to hear this kind of news, a lot of investors will be interested in that sector. And the price of stocks in that sector definitely will enjoy a positive sentiment. I think those are the major areas. Then for the consumer goods goods sector, as we continue to see increasing rates and inflation increasing, to continue to have impact on that sector. But for stocks like Nigerian bureaus, because when Nigerian bureaus, when they did their trial, one of the major things they announced is that the parent company have suspended interest in the loan to that company, and they are looking at raising money via the right issue, one of the biggest issues so far, for them to be able to settle some of those things. I think that will also have an impact on that stock. It's one area for long-term investors. One area that people need to watch.
All right, that's an area for long-term investors to look at. Thank you so much, Vincent Oshoma, Securities Dealer, Midpoint Capital Ltd, for your time and your thoughts on the show today.